We're in for this session on generative AI. It's a real pleasure to be with you today, to be at the festival. I've been enjoying it a lot until now. We've got an hour in front of us, and we've got 5 amazing people here on stage. We're going to keep some time for questions from you guys towards the end. And before that, I'd like to engage in a lively discussion with our guests today. First off, let's see here, we've got another 55 minutes, and we're going to try and be courteous to the next session, so that leaves us with about 50 minutes. First off, one thing I'd like to do, before we even do introductions, I'd like to run a quick survey of the audience here to have an idea of your own exposure to generative AI. So I will not even ask the question whether you've used generative AI, because I suppose that probably everybody here has been in touch with ChatGPT, with OpenAI tools, maybe even with image generation tools. But instead, I'd like to ask, who in the audience has, used or been in touch with generative AI tools other than language and text, maybe? Who's played with any video generation or other forms of? Okay, so ready? Okay. Q. Whose organizations, or if they're freelancers or whatever, who's been looking at, evaluating use cases for generative AI in their own organization? Okay. And I hope you're taking good notes so we have an idea, we can gauge that. And who's been applying generative AI in production scenarios in their organization? Already, okay. It's about, almost 10, not too bad, eh? More than I thought. Good, thank you. Now, I'd like to invite our guests to a round of introductions, so we hear about their background. I'll give my own introduction at the end. Valentina, would you like to start?
Sure. I'm gonna check. Yes, it's working. First of all, thank you, Sebastian, for this great opportunity. I'm Valentina Russo, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Contents.com. What we do actually is to leverage this, what I like to define it, real tectonic shift with AI, right? We change a little bit our way of dealing with our daily life. And as part of this organization, I would like to bring my experience today. So, Sebastian, tell me if I can go further with that and give a little bit of more information.
You want to give two sentences, the literal elevator pitch that fits into 30 seconds? Go on.
I'm going to try. I really referring to this as a real tectonic shift when thinking about generative AI and artificial intelligence. I think analysts are really giving us a lot of information in terms of how AI is really changing our approach to the business by improving our life. And if we compare this to the way we adopt smartphones or cloud or social networks, I think this will become even faster than what we experienced in the past. So with this type of approach in mind, at Contents.com, we actually conceived a platform, only one platform, to orchestrate any type of contents that can be utilized in our daily life. We address, of course, marketing. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer, and I see the pain every day, but also any other departments such as HR, finance, or legal, where the need of handling with content is complex, is painful, and requires support.
Okay, thank you, Valentina. Aaron.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Aaron Bhaumick. I'm the Chief Design Officer at SAP. A humanist in nature, in general, trained in the field of human-computer interaction with my background, especially in enterprise software at Oracle, IBM, and now at SAP. It's a challenging time and fascinating space for AI. For me, technology is just an enabler. The experience is really the product. So for me, the challenge is to be able to infuse AI in meaningful ways so that we can make human lives better. And that's where SAP comes in. SAP has around 90% penetration of customers running mission-critical workloads on its system. So the reach is huge, global company, and that's where we have the potential to actually touch people's lives in many ways. And that's the goal, and the sort of gist of what I'm trying to drive is to humanize and apply human-centered methods and frameworks to produce experiences that hopefully people love. So that's me.
Thanks, Aaron. And Mara?
Hi everyone, Mara Pometti, Associate Director at McKinsey. I work on the design and deployment of AI solutions with our clients by adopting human-centered methods. By training, I'm a data journalist, so I define myself as an AI-savvy humanist. The human component is really a core part of my approach to AI. It's always been, as well as the journalistic method.
Hey everyone, I'm Uthman. I'm the AI ethics leader at BP and also do some work with the World Economic Forum and recently NIST AI Safety Institute. And for us as an organization, when you're operating in like critical infrastructure related use cases, safety is obviously like a massive priority for us. So a lot of my job involves around creating policies and procedures and technical guidelines to make sure that we actually have robustness in place to make use of AI actually where we operate.
Hi, I'm David Delalo, and I am an AI industry analyst at a company out of Boston called GAI Insights. I also own a business content agency, and we help technology companies create content for their thought leadership programs. And previously, I was with Mara at McKinsey for 6 years. I ran their AI thought leadership program, so anything you saw written by McKinsey for about 6 years about AI had some hand in, for better or worse. As part of my analytical work, I'm very passionate about sustainability. So the perspective that I'll be bringing to the table today is, very bullish on AI. Certainly won't be saying we shouldn't do it, but that we should be ensuring that we're deploying it mindfully, given our climate targets.
Thanks, David. Thanks, everybody. Let me introduce myself briefly. My name is Sébastien Bratière. I'm the Director of AI at Translated. Translated as translation services provider with humans. So we build technology, but to help humans perform their job, our translators in this case. Translated has been in existence for more than 20 years now, translated 1 million documents so far. We've got 200,000 translators work in 200 languages, and you can bet there's a lot of technology behind that, and that's my job. I also am the managing director of PySchool, where we do training and rapid prototyping in AI. And my own background is in engineering. I've got a PhD in probabilistic machine learning from Cambridge and a master's in natural language processing and speech recognition. So I'm the technical guy in the panel, which is interesting because it's not the usual, I would say, configuration of these panels, I think. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so one thing that I'd like to do to get the discussion running on on concrete things is for maybe each of you to pick a use case that you've witnessed firsthand, maybe that you worked on, or that you've witnessed firsthand that you think especially interesting. So we've said that, in my survey question, I said, okay, there's generative AI, okay, in text, we all know ChatGPT and many other variants of LLMs by now. There's generative AI in images, but then there's all the rest there. There's also video, there's 3D, construction of 3D environments. There's even materials. There's generative AI in pharmacology for drug design, in materials, in organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, anything. So there's a lot of fields where generative AI actually is present. And also, generative AI is not there. This is what I can say. Generative AI hasn't just appeared magically, in the last 2 years or anything. Generative AI has been there for, I don't know, maybe 50 years if you look at it, but certainly for more than 10. I consider the job I do, for instance, translation, as a form of generative AI, in the sense that we take some text in a given language and we produce, with the help of machine learning algorithms, the transformer in that case, we produce text in another language. And obviously, this is a form of generative AI. So this is, this is a way to point at the variety of maybe applications that one can think of, so as not to limit the discussion to only, to not equate generative AI to foundation models to LLMs. These are three different things, and I think it's easy to get them confused, but they're certainly not the same thing. And so I wanted to, have this horizon present in mind. Okay, use cases then. Would you like to start, Valentina, and pick one that you like?
Sure. Let me give you really a tangible example of the using of generative AI. Joining Contents.com, we starting helping companies really to craft the content creation by really having in mind their guideline, their tone of voice, their way of positioning themselves into the business. And a very important fashion industry was working with us, asking us to improve their corporating blog, so the way they were positioning their blog within their website. Before Contents.com, the frequency was simply publishing twice per day. With us, we improved the publishing, like having a very specified and structured editorial plan with more than 5 publications per day. This increased rapidly the unique visitors to the website by 6,000 times, which is amazing, with the usage of our technology. This is just an example to give you the idea of a tangible result of how an application such Contents.com can help, but in general, how we are actually experiencing a new direction in doing business, let's say, revitalizing the collaboration within the company and with the final customers. And this is just an example to give an idea of how it can be tangible and not something completely outside of the stream, out of the blue.
Thank you. Thanks, Valentina. Aaron, what's yours?
So before I answer your question, I'll just say that according to Morgan Stanley, the opportunity for AI and applied AI is $4.1 trillion. And in that $4.1 trillion space, around 150, 160 billion is around software products and consumption. And that's the place SAP is in, business applications. So over the last year or so, we've been pretty deep at work trying to figure out which use cases actually matter. Because I think there's a tendency to apply technology for technology's sake, because it's a hot new technology. But since we run business-critical applications, and humans are actually using those applications to get their job done, to get a paycheck at the end of the day. So the cost of mistakes are huge. So in that context, around 150, 200 use cases were sort of generated. And it's hard to pick one or two, but I'll just say that I'll keep it simple. What we decided is that we need to really make AI a known face, so to speak. So humans don't understand what is AI. They probably don't need to at some point, but they need to at some point. So it's one of those dichotomy we live in. So we created an expression of AI called Joule. Joule is a way that we expect end users of SAP applications to interact with and get advantage of the essence of AI. And use cases that is very common. I mean, most of us are employees in a company. All of us are. I guess you all are as well. And some of you are managers, right? How many of you love writing performance and business goals for your employees? Just a simple case. You have to write it. It has to be meaningful. Do you put the time and effort to really think through what it means, the language? And does it know the systems, the past history? The performance obligations that an employee has. What if generative AI could do that for you? You're still in control as a human. The generative AI can create some of the introductory content for you to then polish and put forward. An employee, on the other hand, like, let's say, a sales rep. We also have many different portfolios from human capital management to CRM to finance to manufacturing. But let's say, pick an example of an employee. An employee who is, let's say, like a sales rep. Sales rep tries to close deals. That's their job, sell products. But they hate using systems. They hate putting the data into systems because that's not core to what they do. At the same time, if the system has the data, it can generate better opportunities and better pipelines for the sales rep. So we took this extension of the use case where the manager could write a goal with the help of a generative AI for someone like a sales rep who can use other AI toolkits that we have to summarize opportunities, to think about which customers they're working with, inherent traits about customer relationships that they're not aware of, summarize some emails and sentiments, and bring their customer and contacts together through a series of tools that we call CX AI Toolkit. So the examples I'm giving are real-life production use cases of applied AI, leveraging generative AI.
Super. Thanks, Aaron. Mara, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, sure. Many use cases that I can think of. One that there is a solution that we recently developed for a client who is an industrial machine equipment provider. And we really help them change customer operation services because coming a bit back to Arin's point, the customer, the people at the call center that receive the call of their customers are frustrated because their industrial machine doesn't work anymore. Think of big machines like excavator. They, poor thing, have to go through something like more used to go actually for more than 5 systems to manually skim through PDF full of instructions to pass to technicians on the field to repair these machines. This was a huge amount of hours of work spent on only retrieving across this document the right instruction to speed up the resolution of a customer's problem. And you can understand that there are a lot of, with these big machines, downtime, there are a lot of fees for the customers of this organization. And so eventually with generative AI, we change completely the workflow of customer service agents by saving them more than 10 hours of time. They basically used to spend hours and hours with this document, and now just in 2 minutes, by asking the agent we built for them that source different data from their Salesforce system, SAP system, so from different sources, they can directly make a call to the technician on the field and speed up the resolution. This saves and unlock actually for these industry customers more than 400,000 euros a day because of the downtime of these machines. So it's a big revolution in terms of customer experience, but also the employees of this enterprise organization experience. So there are a few ways of capturing the value of generative AI use cases, both for looking at the employees with always this human-centered lens, right? And also eventually the customer experience. Just to give one example.
Thanks, Maria. I think the use cases are really, yours are really interesting because you point at impact, but through human augmentation. And we see that this is human-centered design, in the way that it's conceived. Uthman.
It's funny you mentioned human augmentation because the use case, we haven't done this one at BP, but I met a guy that can use Gen AI to read your mind. So I don't know if anyone attended the neurotech panel this morning, but this is the emerging field. And it was actually, funnily enough, at an ethics and privacy conference that I met him, and he did his keynote. And essentially what he had done is, if there's a technology called neural interfaces, where you kind of connect your brain to an external computer, he had a test subject and recorded demo where there was a guy sitting there in the lab with a load of electrodes sticking out of his brain. And they asked him questions, and the computer would show what he was thinking, because they're able to use generative AI to decode his brainwaves. And it was really frightening but amazing. But the way he said it as well, he opened his panel with, I don't know anything about ethics or privacy, but here's what I've been doing. And when you described it, we all looked at each other terrified. But I was kind of like, I want to see what else he's been doing. But yeah, he also showed that with the same test subject, it was really, really amazing. Because then he had the guy, there's like a video of him, and he's saying, I can see the eyes and the face and stuff. And the guy explains, there's no eyes or face. We got the AI to make him think something was there, because it was connected to the part of your brain, the electrodes, that decodes images and faces. And then, you know, like certain use cases companies are looking at with these sorts of new technologies, like past thoughts to replace passwords and all this sort of frontier stuff. But then you get into the whole thing about thought policing and why the ethics is a little bit different. I thought I'd share that one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna share two, but one of them is really quick, and it's because it's one that I saw just this morning that I thought was really interesting. I believe the company was called ImageScope. They were at the application stage today, if anybody saw it. And since I'm the sustainability guy, this one's was interesting to me, where they used 15 LLMs to create a system and a dashboard for regulators to be able to determine if a company is greenwashing, which means that they're kind of overstating their sustainability efforts and achievements. So I thought that was a pretty interesting use case. But the one that I'll share as well is kind of, you know, customer service is obviously one of the most obvious, I guess, use cases for generative AI. And of course, there's concern that that would put people out of work. But I have a positive story, which there's a company in the US, it's about $400 million company. It's called GetJerry.com, and it's kind of a one-stop shop for everything with your car. So you could use it to get car insurance quotes, you could use it to figure out where to get your car repaired, et cetera. And so they had an entirely, you know, manual, human-led customer service operation, and then generative AI came into play, and they basically are using LLMs to respond through the app. And they went from a 24 to 48 hour turnaround time of addressing a customer's issue to like literally seconds. They're on track to save $4 million a year. They haven't fired or laid off a single customer service rep. They've been training the systems and continuing giving feedback and refining them, and also the company is just growing so much that they need them as well. So I thought that was it was a very lucrative and positive story.
That's really interesting. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, David. Now I'd like to go into a couple of topical questions with you guys. I think there are very many aspects of figuring out use cases, deploying them, governing them, and so forth that we need to discuss here. So let me ask with a question maybe to Valentina, and then maybe if someone has reactions to that feedback, then we'll go into that. So one thing that that you're probably seeing in your work is you need to help your customers decide what use case is the right one to use with what piece of technology, right? So there's many options. A bit like maybe Aaron, you were thinking of, one can list hundreds of use cases and probably evaluate them across, you know, decision matrix and see which is the right use case here based on state of the art, available products or solutions on the market, and the use case itself. So like, how do you go about this? What's the useful insights that, you know, can help people maybe in the audience think about these issues?
Sure. Let's say, Sebastian, that when thinking about investing in projects that can leverage artificial intelligence or generative AI, what we really touch daily at Contents.com is really two micro forces. I would really to summarize it in this way. The first one is that is working well. Can you hear me? Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. The first one is related really to managing high volume of content. It's something painful. it's something that creates a lot of frustration. So thinking about all the use cases that you mentioned, the collaboration with the sales team, was a very good example. Why is frustrating? Because there is a lack of connection, of integration between application of generative AI and the, let's say, main platform in the business. Let's think about CRM and ERP. So this is the first big pain when thinking about this type of project and use cases. And maybe the second that I would call out, which I think is very relevant, is the demand for personalization. I'm going to say something maybe that is not something very well known. We are experienced in all industry, a strong competition. How do we set the expectation? How do we make us very relevant? The only way is to deliver personalized outputs. In the case of contents.com, content, of course. So personalization is really the big focus that I would call out in terms of building use cases. And so the capability of tailor something that is sweet for your need, for your company. Let me give you a tangible example. At contents.com, what we do is to leverage at the very beginning of the project with customers an analysis of their brand guidelines to secure that those are integrated in the final output. And these are the type of personalization that I was referring to. So those two, I think, macro area, in our perspective, in my perspective, are the one that can really make the difference when thinking about meaningful use cases, applicable and tangible, that can bring concrete results.
Thank you. Anybody from the panel who's got feedback specifically on this question of figuring out use cases, criteria to apply?
So for me, I'm going to go with the more human approach to say that at the end of the day, it's about making humans smarter, more productive, etc., with applied AI. So when you think about use cases, there is this inclination to look at the existing technology and map it to a feature or a function and say, can it be done? Okay, then let's do it. What we find out is that LLMs in general purpose LLMs, even the ones out there, we all know they're not essentially the best at getting there. But if we can bring humans in the loop to train and augment the LLMs, that's where you're going to get magic happen. So part of our vetting of the use case, if I may say, is to do deep user research. It's easy to fathom that certain use cases will be meaningful, but we tend to find out that if users are not involved in the process of making, sharing, they often are hesitant to contribute and take it up. And the reason is lack of trust, lack of understanding of what it actually does for them, to them. So for me, she talked about personalization, which is fantastic, which is a key piece of consumption. But the secret sauce here is, do we really understand the user's problem and their intent? And making it part of the process and making it part of the loop will make a difference.
That's a really interesting criterion. So you're speaking of human, like user-centered design, literally. And you bounced off Valentina's point on personalization, but then also the involvement of humans in the loop for feedback, like the material that can be produced by workers in the during the usage stage of the deployment stage of the solution. Is there anything that one should think of when building in such feedback loops or such systemic design of human-in-the-loop solutions? Is there something that you can think of? Maybe, Mara, you have a point. You want to say something about issues connected to deployment of such solutions, specifically?
Yeah, exactly. To elaborate more on this point that I think it's crucial. I believe that the user-centric approach is still underestimated because unfortunately it's not seen as an asset to organization, while it is. It is because it ensures to capture and generate and capture value eventually. Because if we don't anchor the technical roadmap of the deployment of AI solution and their design to real users' problems, starting from understanding, as Aaron was saying, what's the problem that we're trying to solve, eventually organizations end up to merely deploying exercises that are technical but don't solve any problems, and eventually it's a waste of money and resources.
And you're literally saying, Mara, that you see this happen a lot, like too much, you're saying.
It's happening a lot, and in fact, unfortunately, the bigger barrier to deployment, which then brings to a lack of adoption and trust from the users, it's really rooted in the lack of problem definition, because there is no understanding through user research, through bringing the users, as Aaron said before, into the process from the very beginning. And so this is why the human-centered approach, I believe it's an asset. It should be framed as an asset for organization and a framework to start really creating value for the organization, while usually it's like, human-centered approach, yes, it's nice to have, but value capturing is something else. No.
That's really interesting. So is there reasons why this is so? Like, I can imagine, also having helped clients do this, doing proper user research and actually, putting the user in the center of the design here. This is not always easy, and it's often also expensive to do because it slows down. It takes some time at the inception of the project, even before you've got a go, no go on the technical, stage of it. So, what are these, I would say, objective things to do in terms of user research? Is it all, focus groups? Back when I was designing dialogue systems, they were called Wizard of Oz experiments, where you had an experimenter sit behind a curtain and simulate a dialogue system that wasn't yet implemented, and studying the user's reaction to that. Are there other techniques like that you often apply that helps solve this bottleneck of doing proper user research?
I think Mara and I can riff on that a little bit. I would say that it's really the triangulation of things. It's so some standard usability methods and frameworks are still applicable. Makes sense. Like if you're designing a piece of software that does something for a person, get them to take part in the creation process, see how they use the system, learn from it, make the change. Simple logic. What we also tend to see is now that we are in cloud, and most of our software is in cloud, we have the added benefit of being able to leverage the usage analytics. Like, are people getting stuck at certain points in time? And you can experiment. You can do A/B experimentation of different adaptations of AI to see which one flies. But one of the most essential pieces, which is more qualitative, I would say, is to really get in the head of the users to think about what are the key decision points they're going through in doing the task, without tying the electrodes that Uthman was talking about. So that could be done in contextual inquiries. You go to some customer sites or some potential prospects that fit the persona you're targeting. It's very simple to watch them in action. You don't have to do much. Introspect a little bit, reason, and then come back. User research is not rocket science. It just has many ways of reaching out to the users, triangulating the decision points coming from usage analytics, standard usability tests, as well as other focus groups and other such standard terms. But the gist is that once you have the data, now what? Applying those insights into the creation process is what makes or breaks deployments.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thanks for sharing this. Moving on to the pair of David and Uthman. I'm asking this because I'd like to ask you questions which are tied, correlated at least. One is, so we have good reasons to design systems, AI systems, which when deployed can be monitored as to their effect on say the environment. Environment being not just carbon footprint, but then also social environment, questions of governance, sometimes political impact, impact on the workforce, impact on users' habits, and so forth. And monitoring the impact and figuring out ways to, well, control it is obviously tied to questions of compliance and governance, and therefore ethical questions, which is why I wanted to ask, because of your experience, I wanted to ask you these kind of tied questions, being like, here we've been speaking about, you know, the design and of generative AI solutions and of precautions to take when, like in that stage, in the preparation and deployment stage. Is it a good idea to start, it's a kind of rhetorical question, I guess the answer is no, is it a good idea to start with governance considerations or sustainability considerations once you've deployed your system?
No, no, because
too late at that point.
Consistently, the problem I see with companies is that they start like an internal AI ethics team, then they have like the privacy assessment, cybersecurity, whatever, and then right at the end they go like, "Is this ethical?" Yes. then they deploy, right? But the whole point of AI ethics in a commercial setting is you got to think about these things early. Because to like Mara's point about like usage and adoption, if you have like the greatest AI productivity tool or whatever it is, and you bring it into your company, but you spent the last year saying be wary of AI and what you put into it, and then you're giving them this tool and all your employees are confused saying, I thought we can't use AI, and then they go, actually, I don't even want to use this anymore. Then, you know, what was the point of that? So even when you start with ethics, like always encourage companies, this ethical outlook should be one of the very first things you do in your review process. So if you use it like, for example, right, like let's say like there's an AI productivity tool you're looking to procure or something. You want to bring this tool into your company, you think it can enhance, make your employees' life easier and all this stuff. But when you bring the tool in, if you do the ethics too late, you'll quickly find that people ask, why did he get a tool, but I didn't? Or, you know, how do we even know that they're using the tool properly? Then you find out people with different accents, for example, if it's like a recording AI device, English is your second or third language, the AI is saying that they said things when they didn't and everyone's confused. And then it leads to a whole host of issues that often actually do lead to unintended discrimination that can become legal. Like if all your employees that had this AI productivity tool all get bonuses, then there's a strong link to say, okay, maybe you're actually vulnerable from an employment law perspective, right? But if you just done this ethical thinking at the beginning and just really said, like, just keep it very simple, let's just play this out. What happens when we roll out this tool? Have we spoke to people about how they feel? And what you'll see is that in this example with like this AI productivity tool, right? Is quickly you'd realize, okay, who gets the license or who gets use of it first? Then there's issues there. Then it's actually, okay, we need to educate people. Okay, we need to educate them how to use this tool, explain how this is like being ring fenced and everything. You should be comfortable using it with the data going in and coming out. And then you realize actually there's a new task that's come out is we need to produce like a good quality education package. And quickly what you find is from doing this like early consequence scanning, you figured out all the tasks the whole team needs to take. And for a lot of companies, they go, actually, it's a lot of work to do like one full, real, deployed, scaled AI solution. But then as a company, you can make an informed decision going, actually, it's worth it doing this. And it stops people doing random proof of concepts that might not go anywhere. And for a company, if you've got limited resources in terms of ethics and governance and legal, you've got to be very strategic with where you deploy your people. Because then you can say, as like the chief finance officer, whoever, to say, these are the ones that make the most impact for us. I'm going to support these ones. We're going to follow them through to the end. If new ones come up, all of a sudden you can say, actually, maybe we need to hire more people doing ethics or legal, whatever. But again, like AI ethics is just good project management, program management. And to make it more real for people as well, like it's about actually doing tasks, because there's a lot of conversations about the principles and the standards and the frameworks, but it's still just work like anything else. Like we never say like putting software development from principles to practice. You're just expected to do your job, and this should just be part of like everything else you do.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, similarly with sustainability concerns, I mean, it's definitely something to think about. I mean, pretty much at every stage that you're pursuing. So, you know, initially when you're thinking, okay, build or buy, right? Do you really need to build a whole new LLM, or can you take something off the shelf and fine tune it, which is obviously going to take up a lot less energy. You may have seen the statistics to the estimate of the amount of energy it took to train GPT-3, which is the previous version, was equivalent to powering the average American household for 120 years. So, we probably want to limit how many systems that we train, if possible. And the big thing here, though, is measurement, and that also kind of needs to be put into place early on, right? If you build a tool, there's software available that you can code right into the system that will track emissions from the energy use from your AI tools automatically. If you are using a solution, an LLM from a cloud provider, the cloud providers offer tools as well. Google has one, Microsoft, they all have a tool that can measure, let you track the emissions of, excuse me, your usage. They're not perfect, and they're not standardized, and that's another thing that we need to push for, but they're there and need to be used from the start. And I mean, going back even further, do you need generative AI, right? So there's a huge amount of pressure that even coming from the board level, there's this kind of hype right now, everybody's using it, we need to get started. And yes, but, make sure that the tool fits the job, right? There are plenty of other types of AI that are less energy intensive than generative AI is, and that may be the best tool for the job.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thanks so much for the points, for the insights that you've given us here. I'd like to now move on to questions from the audience here. We've got another couple of minutes left, and so I'd like to invite those of you who have questions. I already see a hand raised here, to ask them. I suppose that what I'm going to do is just get up and hand out my microphone for you guys to ask your questions. And if you can figure out who you'd like to ask on the panel, then go for that.
We should repeat our names.
Hi, thank you all so much. This has been a very instructive panel for me. I work in international development and I'm doing digital projects management. So my question is, thank you very much for talking a little bit about the use cases for AI and also building the business case for AI. My question is about how can we show people in the corporate setting, not just executives, but also, fellows, the value of using artificial intelligence and help overcome resistance to change. I haven't used artificial intelligence at work so far. For me, it has been more digital platforms, but even for that, it's sometimes difficult to convince colleagues of new ways to do things. Thank you.
Well, I'll start with this. Sometimes it's a matter of just showing, a tool that's kind of available to everybody, right? So, as an example, I was just sharing with Uthman earlier. I have a friend who's a teacher, and the education system isn't always known for being an early adopter of technology. And over the summer, I said, "Hey, have you used ChatGPT yet?" And she said, "What's that?" And I said, well, it's this thing that can save you a lot of time because it actually can write your lesson plans, and she didn't believe me. And we sat down. I said, sit there and tell it exactly what would be in your mind as you're trying to craft a lesson plan and see what happens, So she did it, and, it spits it out in 20 seconds, and her mind was blown, right? And now she's using it all the time. So sometimes I think it's just literally giving hands-on experience with something very accessible that can change minds quickly.
If I may add something, because I received this question, similar question during those days at the event, I think the answer should be also focused on talent. If people that are working in your team are a person with a lot of talent, they will immediately understand how generative AI can really bring support. And I want to mention a very well-known US writer, entrepreneur, Ray Hoffman. I will suggest to you to have a look on YouTube on his latest video when he's actually speaking at the Business School University in Bologna. And Reid is saying, don't be afraid, you are the generation of artificial intelligence to the student. And he likes to mention actually generative AI instead as amplification intelligence, really in the sense of elevating the humanity. And so if people are with this approach in mind, I think they can immediately touch the possibility, the infinity possibilities.
Thanks. Yes. So, and here, I'll come back to you later.
Yes, I was wondering what, in your opinion, would be the best resource or library or source to find examples of the application of LLMs and business problems that are solved with those LLMs, because we're figuring out our own wheel within our corporation. You've had lots of experience. So I'm looking for good resources or libraries where I can find inspirational information and actual use cases. I don't know who's best able to answer this, but...
See, on the business side, I guess the best approach would be, if you take any big company that are investing heavily on Gen AI, they usually typically have a roadmap that's been shared. So start with that, and the roadmap will give you the use cases, and then maybe then drill down further. So that would be my suggestion right now.
And you can go to McKinsey.com because I know I'll say it since I don't work there any longer, but used to work there. That they have actually, honestly, they have a lot of great reports up that share, lists of use cases by function, by industry. That if you're in a position where you're just starting to get ideas, early days, it really is a good resource.
Thank you. Anyone else? No. Okay. Who had their hands up? You did.
I just wanted to share our experience and in this way commenting the two last questions, because concerning, how to bring on board the organization and all the user, I agree. You have to lead with the examples. We developed, and we had the same experience with automation first, with robots. Now everybody wants robots in the company, but then when we moved to generative AI, we developed our own prototype of an assistant. We are in the travel business, so it was a travel assistant. And when they saw this tool that is called AlpiGPT, not very original, but, then everybody started figuring out what they could do with the technology, but not in general, not using ChatGPT, but their own chat in the company. So build the first example, and then they will come. Then concerning the use cases, we had 1.5 years of internal experience bottom-up. So we were, polling up the most talented people, the most advanced, the digital champions, but this is not enough. You will collect maybe, tens of use cases. Then what we did when we saw the potential of the technology, I'm sorry, I have to say, we hired McKinsey, and now we have 98 use cases to process. So at a certain point, you have to scale. After you prove that the technology can bring value to your business and to your industry, because it is not generic. You have to find out your own use cases. That's it. No, it was just...
just McKinsey.
I think he was just a plant by Mara to say that hire McKinsey to help.
Any feedback on that?
No, a point exactly on this reflection and ties back to the first question that we have. I think that for the scaling part and having people using actually these tools, also something important is securing from the very beginning a pool of sponsors users, because they will be the one advocating for that tool inside the organization and really catalyzing the change with other colleagues and employees. And oftentimes we think that just a change management program triggers that cultural change, but this is not enough if humans, again, are not the ones advocating for that change by themselves because they see the value of the tool. So it's really important also also to secure not just beta users for informing what to change in the technical solution to improve it, but also sponsors users.
I'll just add one other point, and there's a question coming up shortly. Within the company, at least in the SAP case, what we've also done is we have built our AI playground, which essentially allows any employee within the company to go and test out AI. And that's important because, first of all, it's a black box and employees don't really know what to do. So that's day one, and it's an important part to be able to leverage their energy and passion. The second is about, I think you made the point about it has to be specific to the industry, to their own use case. So I lead the design function, as an example. So for me, the usage of AI is meaningful in creative expressions of certain things. So what we tend to do is we have meetups every month where we bring up certain topics of interest to see what kind of passion fuels from the advent of technology. So you have to find 3 or 4 use cases that are relevant to your team specifically, introduce a few events, fun events, where they can come and learn, do some hackathons and things like that. And that's how the spirit starts running. But functionally, you need to have a playground or something that lets them touch AI.
Super, thank you. Question here. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a generative AI consultant globally. I live in London, but I'm working with a lot of corporations, corporate knowledge bases, for example, training younger staff or junior staff up to a higher level. And then also for finance, scanning financial documents and prospectuses, etc. So really, really good LLM cases. The WEF was last month in Davos in Switzerland, as you probably know. They said that 40% of global CEOs are going to adopt generative AI, and with that, they're looking at about a 5% staff reduction. What factors are you seeing that are keeping people away from Gen AI and AI? Is there any negatives or perceptions that are keeping people from embracing this technology? Because we're all advocates of it and positive.
Well, I can share an example. Actually, there's a legal tech startup I spoke to recently, and they've built like an LLM AI contract automation tool, which is really fantastic and everything. But the resistance they're getting from a lot of large corporate law firms is that if we bring this automation tool in, a lot of our junior lawyers were worried that a lot of the work will be automated, and we just, quite frankly, we don't know what we're going to give them in the end, and we haven't really planned for the future of job displacement in our company and industry, or what the future of work is going to look like. So because they hadn't even done the ethical thinking to think like, what is the company going to look like 5 years from now, or even less, they were like, actually, do we want to bring this tool in? Because they know what's going to come around the corner, right? So again, like, this is the thing with ethics, like when you need to think about these things as companies very early on to even consume these technologies.
The two biggest things that I'm seeing as barriers are, one, the copyright concerns. The data that's in a lot of these tools, either the companies aren't completely transparent about where it's come from, or it's already known that there is copyrighted material in there. And the generated material that you create, you may not be able to copyright. So that is a big concern that I'm seeing. And then there's also the accuracy. So by nature, generative AI is a probabilistic system. That means it's not going to come out with the exact right answer every time. It's actually built to not do that. That's why it's so good at being creative, because it's going to give you a different answer to the same question every time. So for certain use cases where accuracy is absolutely critical, it's just not quite the right tool. There are some ways around it. There's a technique called RAG that can help in some cases, but it's still not perfect.
And I would add also, if I may, really going to a tangible approach, I think companies are completely lost with the art of prompting, and this is very complex. Going back to the conversation that we had at the beginning, a human in the loop, at contents.com, we try to have prompting engineer, linguistic maestros that can help really to address this important phase to avoid to have accuracy, actually. And then also hallucination. This is another big topic. We didn't have the time to approach it, but think about particular industries such as pharma or legal, where terms are extremely important. The way of using generative AI needs to be addressed to reduce the level of hallucination. And again, I think working with system integrators such as McKinsey, having a solution that can really project management, the adoption of generative AI, it's the answer to this type of, let's say, forces that are hindering to embrace generative AI in the organization.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the questions. If we have any further, I'd invite you, to join the stage afterwards because we're short on time. I'm afraid I'd like to be courteous to the next session.
That was nicely done.
We are happy to see all these questions.
They stay around and you'll be able to ask them. I'd like to finish off with one short stance from each of you on the outlook you have. What are you hoping for to happen, to see, to realize in the next 2-3 years in our field, in generative AI? What is your hope we will see?
Very fast, conscious of time, the future that we see at contents.com is no longer content creation. This is a commodity. Everyone will do it very fast. Instead is the orchestration, the integration with the system, the hyper-personalization. This is the future that we see.
Thank you. Aaron?
Quick one would be that the promise of AI is that it's going to liberate and fulfill human potential. So in 3 years from now, I'd love to see that happen.
Okay.
Data specification in the sense of injecting the larger thinking of the LLMs, the specificity of organizations' data.
Okay.
Even more than just RAG.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Possibly the creation of new jobs that don't exist yet, or the reimagining of industries such as legal. And I think the final thing I'll just end on is I think David made a really, really strong point earlier about sustainability. And a good motto for ethics, sustainability, and for everything with Gen AI is just what gets measured gets done. So again, just to get scaled use cases, make sure everything's being tracked properly.
Okay, David?
Yeah, and continuing on my theme, I would say I would like to see us point powerful AI tools at some of the biggest problems that we face, such as climate change. We are not on track for maintaining the 1.5 degree increase in temperature that will minimize catastrophic damage. And on the flip side, I hope that we become even more efficient with the way that we can build and run AI so that we do not end up doing more harm than good with it.
Thank you. And with that, a round of applause for our panel.